But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weaknesses, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong. Isn't it amazing? Every single time I read this verse, it inspires me. God used Paul's weakness. Oh, you can sit down, by the way. Sorry. Yeah. Paul used God's weakness to show how much that he can, he's so sovereign that Paul can just depend on him. Even if Paul asked for something and he didn't get what he wanted, he trusted God's sovereignty. For when I am weak, then I am strong. Not only did Paul realize his own weakness, he boasted about it all the more gladly, because then he could experience Christ's power. Paul had so much faith in his sovereignty and God's will for him, and that God had the best plan for him. He trusted God so completely. This is what real faith looks like. Right now, I want to share a little testimony about how God taught me to let go and trust Him. So, I think Tirza said it, but I'm very involved in my music school. So, I've been doing violin since I was 4 or 5. And every year, there's always this scary time. It's called the exam time. And they have 3 judges coming by, and we usually have to prepare 3 months before. And the chances of passing are always so little, and it's really, really scary. So, I was already preparing for my violin exam 3 months before, practicing hours, and also had all the other exams for the oboe, piano, and everything else. And I had it all planned out. Like, I'm gonna pass. It doesn't matter. I'm gonna pass. I have to pass. Suddenly, 2 weeks before, I got this sickness that was contagious. And if you don't know about me, I really love people, and I had to be quarantined for a week. And it was driving me so crazy. And I was also thinking about all the exams that I probably would have less chance of passing, but I still held on to the hope that I would pass, I would be okay before the exam. But the week after that, it got worse. I woke up and I couldn't hear anything. I got deaf. There was an ear infection, and I just laughed and cried at the same time. Like, how am I supposed to do a music exam with hearing problems? That's really impossible. But God used that time, that 1 week, that 2 weeks of just staying in bed to really draw me close to Him. It was hard at first because I just kept thinking about all the things that I've planned, all the hard work that just went down the drain. And I didn't choose to get the ear infection, but God had a great plan for me. Though it was such a hard time, but yeah, He just brought me closer to Him. Instead of worrying all the time in my bed, I just started reading the Bible. He comforted me and reminded me of His sovereignty and His goodness. After the doctor visit 2 days before the exam, I had to make a decision. 2 weeks of no practice, do I still want to go on? There was almost certain failure and embarrassment waiting for me if I decided to join. I prayed about it, and God told me to finish the race with perseverance, and so I did. I did the exams. I was so nervous. The judges actually had to help me tune my violin because I couldn't hear, and it was so off tune. It was so embarrassing. But I knew I did my best, and the rest was in God's hands. So after the exam, I still felt really moody and angry. It was so unfair because I really worked hard for it. But then my mom told me something. He said, if you're still angry and stressed about this, that means you haven't really fully let go and surrendered your life to God and the outcomes of it. So after that, I really decided to really let go, and I've never felt happier. The results didn't matter anymore. I did my best, and I knew God loved me. He stripped me down of my own ambitions and taught me who the master of my life should really be. 2 months later, I found out I passed all of my exams. So, looking back at the story of Paul, isn't it liberating to know that we don't have to worry about being perfect, and we can be like Paul, boasting in our weaknesses and relying on Christ's power? Isn't it liberating that we don't have to pretend we have our lives under control anymore? Isn't it liberating that we aren't responsible for the numerous things that are out of our control? Isn't it so liberating that we can just surrender everything into a God who is so powerful, the creator of the universe? But not only that, not only is He so magnificent and awesome, but He loves each and every single of us insignificant human beings. And He promised us in Romans 8:28 that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him. It isn't easy to let go when we are so used to depending on our own faulty plans and desires. It's really hard to completely trust someone, isn't it? So how do we learn to trust God? The last step, get to know Him. We learn to trust God the same way we learn to trust people, by getting to know them, by listening to Him and talking to Him. But I think a lot of us has got the talking part covered. We don't hesitate to tell God, like, God, I really need to pass this exam. God, I really want this job. But we are lacking in the listening part. When I was younger, I thought the way that God talked to people was like Moses. There's this bass, treble voice, like, Gaby, you're supposed to do this. But I learned that it's really easy. It's really simple. You just have to listen to His Word, the Bible. You might think the Bible is boring and unimportant, but look at it this way. When you read the Bible, you get to know about the Father in heaven who loves you so much and created you. You get to read about the promises He has for you. You get to read about how amazing He is. There is so much to discover and He has so much to say. The only question is, will you listen? Read Hebrews 11 and you'll see a list of the great people of faith that God used for His kingdom. Moses, Aaron, Noah, the list goes on. They were all normal human beings just like us. But you know what made them different? They had faith in God's plan for them and they obeyed. All of them did all kinds of different magnificent things. But you know what they had in common? They talked with God consistently and had a close personal walk with Him. Even Jesus, the Son of God, the perfect human, still set a time consistently to talk and listen to His Father's will. When we learn to trust God, it doesn't mean that our lives will be smooth and perfect. There will always be suffering in this broken, sinful world. But our attitude towards suffering changes when we know that God is sovereign and works for the good of those who love Him. We will have peace amid suffering, just like Paul. Not only that, but when we trust Him, we get to be a part of His amazing plan and receive all the great blessings that come from obeying Him. The question is, will you choose to trust Him?